What is up, guys? Welcome to a brand new video. So as with every new PBE patch, we're going to take a look at some of the newer changes coming into the league, probably in about a week's time. So there have been quite a few shuffles recently, but we're going to start with some stuff that's actually going to help make it easier, hopefully, to play against tanks. Also, by the way, there was a Blade of the Ring King change on here earlier, but it got removed, so saved for another patch where they're going to change it some more. Anyway, the first big one is a change to Last Whisper. So the AD is actually down to 10 from 25, but the bonus arm pen is up to 45% from 30%, and it builds from a longsword. There are actually a load of reasons why this is so good for AD carries and other AD champions. Well, number one, the thing is so much easier to build because you start with a longsword and not a pickaxe. The chances of having 8753 is less than 350, obviously. Number two, while it's 15 less AD, it gives us 15% more arm pen than before, and what a full Last Whisper upgrade, so like Lord Dominic's or Mortal Reminder, would have given us on live. So now we're going to get the full 45% arm pen for 1400 gold less than before. Number three, moving on from that, while upgrading it is going to be more damage still to tanks, we don't need to do that anymore. We'll still get through the armor with just the Last Whisper. So now we have a 1300 gold answer to tanks that we can just leave in our inventory. That is so good. We can literally just detour our build after 2 items, pick up a Last Whisper for the team fights, and then go into lifesteal or more crit after if there's a fed tank. This change, in my opinion, is huge for dealing with tanks and makes the game so much easier for any AD champion. Like, if you're struggling against a really beefy tank who has 2 or more armor items already into the game, you pick up just his Last Whisper, it only costs 1300 gold, and suddenly you're actually able to kill him. There is actually another related change. So Lord Dominic's Regards is the upgrade path from Last Whisper, and it's now 1.5 damage extra per 100 health difference up to 1000. It used to be 1.5% per 50 health up to a maximum of 500, so this upgrade did get nerfed a little bit. It's kind of changed actually. It still will do the same damage against tanks who have over 1000 difference, but it's going to do slightly less against bruisers and supports and stuff like that who don't have quite the 1000 health more than you. To be honest, if they build any sort of defense item, they're most likely going to have more than you anyway, so it's not really going to be a massive issue. The way we're doing this video is to look at the biggest stuff first that's going to impact the most that you really need to know, and then we'll move on to other stuff afterwards. The next one is going to be to Malphite. Everybody has overreacted about this nerf so much. It's still a decent hit to his lane phase, but it's not massive. The key mana cost is up to 45 to 65 from 45, so it actually has a scaling now. If you max it first, which you do, then you're going to actually cost you 20 more mana at max rank. Also, the E landing damage has been removed completely, so it only does damage on the explosion now. Jungle Malphite is basically rest in peace with this. Like, not that he was good anyway, to be fair, so it doesn't make a massive difference, but it's going to really hurt the jungle clear. Your lane push will be a bit weaker. You won't damage minions as well, but your Q is mainly for that anyway. You do max your Q first, so you feel the extra 20 mana sooner into the game, but the E is actually maxed last. So even though this looks like you're losing 120 damage on that E, which is quite a lot, you're actually not losing that until level 18. You're actually losing about 40 to 45 damage in lane if you even manage to hit that thing landing on them anyway. It's pretty hard to hit both parts. Normally you throw it in front of them so they walk into the slow. It's going to suck a little bit, right, for Malphite, I'm not denying that, but it's not actually going to kill him or anything like that. It's not that bad for him. The next one is to Jhin. So the R slow duration is down to half a second from 0.75, and for 4 bullets that is going to be 1 second of slow lost overall. This is the opposite though, so everybody thinks this is a tiny nerf, but it's actually a bit bigger because even though it is only that 0.25 seconds off of the slow, when you hit all 4 shots, they're going to be slowed for a second less than before. The total slow time now, if you hit all 4 shots, would be 2 seconds instead of 3. And when you think of it like that, it's actually a pretty big hit if you're trying to catch someone and slow them down. The first thing, actually the bigger thing, is it's harder to hit multiple shots now. They will be slowed, but not being as long, it means more chance to dodge the next shot, and that is the main thing. Before, if you hit the first shot, hitting the next one wasn't that difficult because they're already slowed, but actually it'll be a bit harder now. Number 2, late game, I actually use ultimate almost as a catch tool. So when I see someone alone, I ult, I hit them, I slow them, and the rest of my team can chase them down. This will actually screw with that a bit, I think, as well. So basically, nuking someone down with just your ultimate will be a bit harder now, and also using it to catch someone won't be as good either late game. There is another random change actually to Tower First Blood. So the gold has been reduced from 400 to 300. I'm guessing this is kind of trying to stop the snowball the game has turned into a bit. There are quite a few mastery changes this patch actually, so we're going to go into them a little bit first, but the first one is to Warlords, which is bigger, the 15% lifesteal now instead of 20%. Cutting 5% off of that, I think are actually pretty big. There was a post a little while ago about how Warlords was too good compared to Fervor, so not many people were picking it. Now the way I thought they were going to go is to buff Fervor a bit more, but apparently this is how they're going to do it instead. It just means like the trade-off for picking Warlords is worse, and you're going to need to buy some lifesteal more likely earlier into the game. Lane phase especially though, you cannot trade like a monkey anymore and then sit back and lifesteal it back up as easily. So most Warlords champions are crit champions as an AD AD carry anyway, right? So they get their triple crit and then either lifesteal or armor pen. Now most of the time, because there are tanks in the game, you have to get the upgrade Last Whisper to deal with those tanks, or your crits will do no damage. That is kind of where Warlords came in, because we couldn't really build lifesteal until last item. But now, as we just said, you can build the Last Whisper component, move on to lifesteal item, and then go back to finishing the Last Whisper last item. So this is a nerf, right? It's going to suck in the lane phase a bit, and later too, especially mid game. But the later you get, you probably won't feel it as much if you play smart, because you'll get that lifesteal item hopefully a bit sooner into the game. Now, one of the other things they're doing in masteries is lowering the random bonus damage down that's everywhere. Basically, Riot buffed all of these percentage damage in the masteries in season 7 because they wanted to make them feel more impactful. But actually, before the game has even started, they stack together, they give a lot more damage, so now they're nerfing them all basically. The first one is in Ferocity Tree. Bounty Hunter, Double-Edged Sword, and Battle Trance are all getting lowered down. Battle Trance is still pretty good in my opinion. Bounty Hunter is good for junglers or people who want to roam a lot. It is still the highest. Double-Edged Sword is only there for burst in my opinion. Like 3 seconds with Battle Trance is not that long in a fight to get the 3% bonus damage and not take any more damage in return. In my opinion, most AD carries will probably be taking Battle Trance now, unless you're like a Misfortune or maybe a Jhin who would take Double-Edged Sword. This is kind of following on from that. The tier 3 in Cunning, so Merciless, the 5% under 40% health is now only 3% bonus damage, and they're also reducing Meditation mana regen from 1.5% to 1.25, which I think is just to make it not as overpowered compared to Merciless, who just got nerfed. Now in my opinion, I actually think this makes going 18-0-12 even better now as an AD carry. I'll link a video in the description that covers that properly if you're interested, but after that I will be going it on basically all of my AD carries, I think. This is the bigger one though. Now we're getting on to lethality changes. So this is trying to control assassins and early game mages a little more and making it so they can't just pretend that armor and magic resist doesn't exist. 2.5 lethality doesn't seem like a ton, but it does add up a fair amount when they're stacking it together. It's more like combined with the next one, I think, actually. So Yumu's is having 5 lethality knocked off of it, so from 20 to 15. Now assassins are actually going to have 7.5 less lethality than they were last patch of their first item, and in my opinion that's a pretty decent chunk to start the game, and hopefully is going to make it harder for them to get to that magic number. The magic number is where they have more lethality than we have armor, and they're basically doing true damage. Now it's going to change a few things for sure though. So Ghostblade Rush might not be there in every single game now. Before you would always try and get this because it had 20 lethality, and Dustblade and Edge of Night had 15. So now they all have the same. It's more about what bonuses you want. So Dustblade is probably actually going to be a better rush now as well on some assassins. There are a few other item changes though. To Black Cleaver, first of all, is 100 more health and 10 less AD. It's actually 50 gold cheaper as well. This isn't that huge, but it's making it more attractive to bruisers and less attractive to AD carries and assassins. Now I'd probably still buy this, to be honest, on someone like Misfortune who has really good synergy with it. The thing is, with the Last Whisper buff and it actually being so much better, only 1300 gold instead of the 3000 the Black Cleaver is, I don't even know if it would be worth it anymore. I think Last Whisper is going to be so good. Knight's Vow is also getting some changes, so the armor is up to 40 from 20, which is double, but when your partner is nearby, you only gain 20 armor and not 40. It's kind of rearranged because they're aiming this at tanks now top lane, I think, make it a better item when you're not in team fights. I actually think this is a good item on champions like Maokai and Shen, maybe, who are pretty low threat, but they're just to absorb damage. The fact that this has more base armor is legit, just meaning you can build it in the lane phase or when you're split pushing and it's not such a dead item, and you're still going to get good use out of it in team fights. I'd expect to see this a bit more now on like full tank top laners, junglers, maybe supports as well, but it's actually definitely an underrated item. There are a few final champion changes just to round out this video. So Cho'Gath, there is another tweak on the Cho'Gath rework that's coming in. The E has a new max rank at 10 stacks and new size and stuff like that, but the ultimate is the main focus again. So it does base damage plus 12% of bonus health true damage now, 5 stacks from minions, but after that there's going to be no cap. You just have to eat champions. You don't lose stacks when you die. You don't have an AP ratio anymore, but the damage scaling with health, that's true damage, is the big thing. That seems nuts to me, right? You build health, you get health from your ultimate, and now you get permanent bonus damage, bonus true damage to your ultimate. That thing is going to do like 800 to 1000 true damage late game, I'd imagine, and that is pretty crazy actually. The next one is to Rise. His E extra bonus damage effect for the Q is 40% to 80% now instead of 40 to 100%. 20% off late game might actually make a bigger difference because we are dealing with really big crits from that Q, right? We're going to have to see, but this is definitely one of those changes that doesn't seem like much, but it actually could affect him quite a bit. Fizz is another one actually getting some changes and some buffs and some weird nerfs at the same time, I guess. The Q and W AP ratios are going up to 45%. The bleed duration is up a little bit on his W as well, but his ultimate is getting some weird kind of quality of life nerfs. If you miss it now, it's actually more punishing, so it's not going to attach onto an enemy as easily. You can miss it before, but it would still attach, which was stupid. It also says a ground attach has been removed, which could be pretty big as well for like a teamfight about if you do miss it. I hate Fizz, honestly, he does so much damage, but I guess if you think about it, like lethality has kind of kicked him out of the meta a bit as far as assassins are concerned. The bleed duration is nice, but I think the R nerfs are actually bigger, honestly. I've lost track of the amount of times I've died to a Fizz ult that's missed but latch onto me anyway. For a champion that's not that good, making him harder to play doesn't really seem to follow logic, but I guess that's how they want to do it. Bard is also being made a better roamer, so rip bot lane for that one, right? I hate playing with Bard. Like, he leaves bot lane and roams mid and the enemy jungle and stuff, and while it wins games, it's super hard to play with when you're 1v2 in lane as an AD. They're going to be buffing the move speed when picking up charms, so the base and the per stack as well, and it's interesting they want to promote the roam stuff of play, I guess, rather than laning, but I guess that's what makes Bard different, right? So Kindred is getting a really weird random buff, I guess. I think it's a buff anyway. They're making it a little bit easier to get stacks. Now, having below 3 stacks means it's only going to mark Scuttle Crab rather than Wolves and Scuttle. It's going to make it a bit easier to path, and you should be able to plan for the Scuttle Crab and stuff like that, but I'm assuming the enemy jungler can plan like that as well and probably counter you and actually find you alone. I'm not even sure what the point of this is except making marks a little easier to get, really. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe for some more, like the video if you did, but for now, let's go to the robots.